one of the top 25 cardiac programs in the nation, Inova Heart and Vascular Institute at Inova Farifax Hospital, just outside Washington, D.C., is a leader in the surgical treatment of atrial fibrillation. Dr. Niv Odd is one of the leading specialists in the treatment of this condition.
Well, atrial fibrillation is an arrhythmia that is a result of a chaotic situation in the upper chambers of the heart. In other words, the two upper chambers, the atria, the right and the left, quivers rather than squeeze. And this creates in turn a state of chaos in which also the lower chamber of the heart is beating either quicker than it should and in an irregular fashion. What we have now is what we had 20 years ago: medical treatment, catheter ablation and surgical ablation. But if we look at the surgical ablation of today as opposed to what it was 20 years ago, due to the new devices we have, the procedure can be done in a much lower invasive rate and with the same success rate that we could offer patients some 20 years ago.
Dr. Niv Odd performs this minimally invasive maze procedure and was among the group of renowned surgeons who pioneered the development of this new technique. Patients have traveled to Inova Heart and Vascular Institute from across the globe to benefit from Dr. Odd's specialized expertise.
So if a patient is failing medical treatment or catheter ablation, they are still highly symptomatic or develops some complications, then it makes sense to offer them the next level of aggressiveness or invasiveness, so to speak, and get them through the heart surgery in which we are performing the minimally invasive maze procedure. Many patients can come to you and are asymptomatic. Some patients are extremely symptomatic. The arrhythmia can be intermittent, meaning it comes and goes, and it can be permanent. The symptoms are mainly related to palpitation, shortness of breath, heart failure-like symptoms. If left untreated, in many patients it can lead to a severe stroke, and in larger scale studies it also showed that it may shorten the life of both men and women.
Today, more options are available to achieve proper heart rate or rhythm control. This minimally invasive surgery is considered to be the gold standard in the surgical treatment of atrial fibrillation. The maze procedure has a success rate of over 90%, and when done minimally invasively, allows patients to get back to their lives more quickly than with traditional procedures.
The maze procedure follows a very basic antiarrhythmic intervention concept, which is if you have a spinning electrical activity that creates arrhythmia, if you cut its pathway, then it wouldn't exist anymore. Having said that, we applied between 10 to 13 lines on both the right and the left atrium using radiofrequency or cryoablation technologies. Those the technologies can allow us to create scar tissue that wouldn't conduct anymore. Now you have to design those lines in a fashion that will create a three-dimensional maze, a true maze, with one entrance up in the right atrium and one exit into the ventricles, and the rest of the atrium is being electrically activated but would never fibrillate anymore. The beauty of the current state of technology is that we can apply this very extensive surgery through a very small incision, i.e. a minimally invasive approach, which allows the patient to recover quickly and get back to their life as soon as possible.
Inova's multidisciplinary program has evolved into a model for hospitals across the country. In addition to receiving Dr. Odd's experience and specialization, Inova Heart and Vascular Institute patients become part of a comprehensive program that tracks their recovery long-term and helps ensure the proper follow-up care and best quality of life for years to come.
We work very closely with the cardiologist. After surgery, patients are seen in the office, and at that time a letter is generated to the cardiologist stating how the patient's doing and what we'd like to see happen over the next months. And in the preceding months after that, the patients are mailed a survey, they let us know how they're doing. We have a protocol that we follow, and we work with the cardiologist to help the patient follow the protocol, and that helps them maintain their sinus rhythm.
So when patients come into surgery and then we follow them after surgery, we want to make sure that we're understanding their mental health, their physical functioning, and those types of things along the way so that we can make changes if necessary and help work with the physicians.
I've had heart arrhythmias since I was about 20. It developed into atrial fibrillation. I tried a number of different medicines for it under the care of a cardiologist, including having my heart shocked a couple of times to try to get it back into rhythm, and that didn't work. And I was then introduced to Dr. Ott, who told me about the minimally invasive maze procedure, which he said was 90% effective. And I decided to go with that as opposed to another treatment. I would highly recommend anybody considering dealing with their atrial fibrillation to get the maze procedure to look into it. There are a number of other treatment options. The success rate of this one was what sort of sold me on it. And I was at a point where my quality of life was disturbed, that I didn't want to deal with it anymore, and I wanted to get it fixed as quickly as possible.
The feedback that we've gotten from the patients has been very, very positive. They like the continual contact that they have with our department and with the surgeon, and knowing that we're working with the cardiologist to help maintain their sinus rhythm and that someone's continually watching over them.
They're very complimentary of the care that they've received, and then especially afterwards, the collaboration that we have with our cardiologists and the fact that we follow them. They're quite amazed that someone still cares about them 2 years after surgery. So I think that's one of the biggest things that we're most proud of, is that we really do feel like we're making an impact in patients' lives.
I've always been very active, played a lot of golf, a lot of skiing, sailing, that sort of thing, and the atrial fibrillation was definitely getting in the way of that. And I would go out skiing, for example, and get quickly out of breath. Driving my car, I'd get lightheaded and worry about crashing my car. These are all things that no longer affect me.
One of the most exciting things that we're working on for the future in particular is taking biological information, specimens from patients when they come in for surgery, and with the long-term goal of developing something like a blood test that can then be used across all patients with atrial fibrillation, which would then give us an indication of their disease, and we can then modify treatment accordingly throughout their progression.
We have very good collaborations with the cardiologists. We all like the fact that we have set up a real program that cardiologists are involved in the preoperative assessment and the postoperative care. And in turn, we have a much better package of treatment to be delivered to patients with a much improved outcome and a safety profile.
And if atrial fibrillation is upsetting your quality of life, that it's something that you get taken care of right away.
New hope has arrived for people living with atrial fibrillation. Learn more about the maze procedure and our commitment to world-class heart care at Inova Heart and Vascular Institute. For more information, log on to inova.org/AFIB or call the number on your screen.